Buried beneath the sands, her heart had stopped until the human brought her back to life. The merciless twin suns of Proxima Centauri beat down on Bryan Carter's shoulders as he trudged through the shifting crimson sands. His brown stealth suit, designed for both concealment and temperature regulation, fought a losing battle against the brutal heat. The ruins of the ancient Nixon civilization stretched before him, their crystalline spires half buried in centuries of accumulated sand. "Another goddamn dead end," Bryan muttered, wiping sweat from his brow. His scanner, a sophisticated piece of human engineering that had cost him 3 months' salary, beeped persistently. What now? The device's holographic display indicated an anomalous reading approximately 2 meters below the surface. Bryan had seen enough false positives to last a lifetime. But something about this signal was different. It pulsed with a rhythm that seemed almost organic. "Well, shit," he grunted, deploying his portable excavation unit. "Might as well check it out before this hellhole of a planet tries to cook me alive." The excavator hummed to life, its focused sonic waves dispersing the sand in precise layers. 20 minutes later, Bryan's breath caught in his throat. There, lying in a perfectly preserved chamber, was a sight that made his heart skip a beat. A female figure lay motionless, her violet skin gleaming like polished amethyst in the harsh sunlight. Her long, wavy black hair cascaded around her shoulders, contrasting beautifully with her sleek, form-fitting black bodysuit. The suit's thin straps and deep neckline spoke of a civilization that valued both function and aesthetic appeal. Bryan's medical scanner confirmed his worst fears. No heartbeat, but something about her appearance suggested she hadn't been dead long. His mind raced through his xenobiology training. Many humanoid species in this sector had evolved remarkable survival mechanisms, including the ability to survive clinical death for hours. "Only one way to find out," he said, reaching for his emergency medkit. The alien adrenaline compound, compatible with most humanoid physiologies, gleamed in its protective case. Bryan had never actually used it before, but he'd heard stories. Taking a deep breath, he positioned the injection device directly over her heart. "Here goes nothing, beautiful. Don't make me regret this." The needle plunged home. For several agonizing seconds, nothing happened. Then suddenly her back arched and her eyes flew open, eyes of the deepest indigo he'd ever seen. She gasped, drawing in a desperate breath, and Bryan found himself supporting her as she coughed and shuddered back to life. "Easy there," he soothed, holding her steady. "You're safe now." She focused on him, confusion and wonder playing across her features. When she spoke, her voice was melodious but rough from disuse. You brought me back?" "Guilty as charged," Bryan replied with a crooked smile, "though I'd love to hear how you ended up buried in an ancient ruin." She attempted to stand but swayed dangerously. Bryan caught her, noting how perfectly she fit against him. "Careful, let's get you somewhere safe first. My ship's not far." "Thank you," she whispered, leaning into his support. "I'm Sci-Fi. I was running from a Crimson Syndicate enforcer. The sandstorm. I thought I'd found shelter, but..." "Well, Sci-Fi," Bryan said, lifting her easily into his arms. "Looks like it's your lucky day. I've got a thing for damsels in distress, especially ones I have to literally bring back from the dead." Her soft laugh sent an unexpected warmth through his chest. "My hero," she murmured, and though her tone was playful, something in her eyes suggested she meant it. Bryan's ship, the Stellar Wanderer, cut a sleek profile against the darkening sky. As they approached, Sci-Fi had regained enough strength to walk, though she kept close to his side. The warmth of her body against his sent pleasant shivers down his spine, despite the scorching heat. "Home sweet home, mommy," Bryan said, palming the entry scanner. "It's not much, but it's got character." The ship's interior was a testament to human engineering, practical yet comfortable. Sci-Fi's eyes widened as she took in the lived-in space, fingers trailing over the worn leather of the pilot's chair. "Your technology, it's so different," she mused. "Rugged, reliable, like you." Bryan felt his face warm at the compliment. "Let's get you checked out in the medbay first. Then we can discuss your apparent death wish with Crimson Syndicate enforcers." The medbay's diagnostic scan confirmed what Bryan suspected. Her biology was fascinating. Her violet skin contained trace elements of crystalline structures, explaining both its beautiful hue and her species' ability to survive temporary death states. Your heart, he said, watching the holographic display, it's actually 3 separate chambers working in harmony. Beautiful design. Sire's indigo eyes met his. You find alien anatomy beautiful? I find lots of things beautiful, he replied, then cleared his throat. The scan shows you're recovering well, but you should rest. A warning klaxon shattered the moment. Bryan cursed, rushing to the bridge with Sci-Fi close behind. The radar showed an approaching vessel. Sleek, predatory, and definitely syndicate. Looks like your friend found us, Bryan growled, dropping into the pilot's seat. Strap in, princess. This is going to get interesting. Sci-Fi buckled herself into the co-pilot's chair, her expression determined. He's not my friend, and I'm no princess. Could have fooled me, Bryan grinned, firing up the engines. The Wanderer lifted off just as energy bolts started peppering the sand around them. The storm belt, Sci-Fi suggested, pointing to the massive wall of swirling crimson clouds on the horizon. Most pilots won't follow us in there. Most pilots aren't crazy humans, Bryan replied, but he was already plotting the course. Hold on tight. The Wanderer shot forward, sand streaming off its hull as they accelerated. The Syndicate ship followed, closing the distance with alarming speed. Another volley of energy bolts rocked the ship. Shit, Bryan yanked the controls, sending them into a spiral. Shield integrity at 80%. Your friend's persistent. He wants what I stole, Sci-Fi admitted, gripping her armrests. Information about their operations, names, locations, things that could bring down their entire network. Bryan spared her a glance. You're just full of surprises, aren't you? They hit the storm belt at full speed. The ship bucked and groaned as massive wind shears buffeted it from all sides. Visibility dropped to near zero, but Bryan flew by instinct and instruments, threading their way through the chaos. You're amazing, Sci-Fi breathed, watching his hands dance across the controls. I've never seen anyone fly like this. Stick around, beautiful. I've got plenty more tricks to show you. The pursuing ship was good, but in the storm's fury, human intuition and reflexes proved superior to automated systems. After 10 minutes of intense maneuvering, their pursuer's signal vanished from the radar. Bryan let out a whoop of triumph. That's how we do it on Earth, baby. The adrenaline of the chase, the thrill of survival, and their close proximity in the cockpit created an electric atmosphere. Sci-Fi's breathing was quick. Her violet skin flushed darker with excitement. You saved my life, again, she said softly. Why do you keep doing that? Bryan engaged the autopilot and turned to face her. Maybe I like the way you look at me when I do. The tension between them crackled like static electricity. Sci-Fi unbuckled her harness and stood, moving with alien grace to stand before him. Her hand, warm and soft, cupped his cheek. Show me more human tricks, she whispered. Bryan stood slowly, their bodies nearly touching. Are you sure? There's no going back from this. Her answer was to press herself against him, her lips finding his with unerring accuracy. The kiss was electric, different yet familiar, exotic yet perfect. Her skin was like warm silk under his hands. My species, she murmured between kisses. We bond for life. Are humans so dedicated? When we find the right person, Bryan replied, lifting her into his arms. We can be pretty damn dedicated. They barely made it to his quarters, leaving a trail of scattered equipment in their wake. What followed was a discovery of differences and similarities, of alien passion and meeting human desire, of two souls finding connection across the vast gulf of space. Hours later, they lay tangled in his sheets, the storm still raging outside. Sci-Fi traced patterns on his chest, her head tucked under his chin. I never expected this, she admitted. When my heart stopped in those ruins, I thought it was the end. Instead, I found a beginning. The stellar wanderer emerged from the storm belt into the velvet darkness of space. Bryan sat at the helm, reviewing the encrypted data chip Sci-Fi had finally shared with him. His jaw tightened with each new revelation. Holy shit, he breathed. This goes way beyond simple syndicate operations. Sci-Fi, wearing one of his oversized shirts that barely covered her thighs, leaned over his shoulder. The casual intimacy of her presence still sent shivers down his spine. The Crimson Syndicate is just a facade. They're working with corrupt officials from the Galactic Council. And they're experimenting on various species, Bryan growled, scrolling through the data. Testing biological weapons. But why? Look deeper, Sci-Fi whispered, her fingers trailing along his neck. The genetic markers they're targeting, they're specific to certain races? Bryan's blood ran cold as he understood. They're developing a way to selectively wipe out entire species while leaving others unaffected. Fucking genocide in a bottle. And humans, Sayira added, are completely immune to their current formulas. That's what terrifies them about your species. You're the wild card they can't control. Bryan pulled her into his lap, needing to feel her warmth. Since their bonding, their connection had grown stronger, more intuitive. He could sense her fear, her determination, and something else, a fierce protectiveness toward him that matched his own feelings. "We need help," he said, nuzzling her neck. "I know some people from my military days. Former Special Forces operators who'd love to stick it to these bastards." "The Syndicate will expect that," Sayira cautioned, though she melted against him. "They'll be watching your old contacts. Then we'll be smarter than they are." Bryan activated the ship's secure communication system. "There's one person they won't be watching. Computer, connect to frequency, Sierra Echo 994. Authorization, Carter, Bryan J., former captain, Earth Special Operations Command." After several tense moments, a gruff voice filled the cabin. "This better be good, Carter. I was enjoying my retirement." "Admiral Parker," Bryan grinned, "how's that fishing spot on Europa treating you?" "Cut the shit, son? What kind of trouble are you in now?" Bryan quickly outlined their situation, leaving out the more personal details of his relationship with Sayira. The Admiral listened in silence. "Biological weapons research targeting specific races," Parker finally said. "And your alien friend has proof?" "Solid evidence, sir. Names, locations, test results. Everything needed to blow this wide open. Get your ass to Europa and watch your six. My sources say the Syndicates deployed their elite hunter teams." Parker out. As the connection closed, proximity alarms blared. 3 ships had just dropped out of hyperspace behind them. "Speaking of hunter teams," Bryan muttered, firing up the engines. "Hold tight, beautiful." The chase that followed pushed both ship and pilot to their limits. The hunters were good, military-grade good, but Bryan had learned a few tricks they didn't teach in any academy. "Remember that immunity you mentioned?" he asked, plotting a course toward a nearby asteroid field. "Think it extends to radiation?" Sierra's eyes widened. "You're not serious." "Dead serious." Bryan grinned. "Human physiology can handle short bursts of hard radiation better than most species. Want to bet these boys aren't human?" The Wanderer dove into the asteroid field, weaving between massive rocks while approaching an unstable pulsar. The pursuing ships followed, but more cautiously. "Bryan," Sayira said softly, touching his arm, "there's something else you should know." She hesitated, then continued. "The bonding between us, it's changing me. My biology is adapting to match your radiation resistance. I can feel it." Bryan spared her a glance, noting the subtle changes in her violet skin. It seemed to shimmer now, like the surface of a star. "Is that normal for your species?" "Nothing about this is normal," she laughed. "My people have never successfully bonded with humans before. We're making history here, my brave captain." The moment was interrupted by a massive radiation surge from the pulsar. While their pursuers broke off their attack, retreating from the deadly emissions, the Wanderer pushed through, its hull creaking in protest. "Their loss," Bryan said, pulling Sayira close once they were clear. "Now, about these changes you mentioned." Their kiss was interrupted by an urgent message alert. Admiral Parker's face appeared on the screen, his expression grave. "Carter, get to Europa now. My security team just intercepted Syndicate assassins. They're not just after the data anymore. They want to study your friend. Something about unique genetic adaptations. Whatever's happening between you two has them spooked." Europa's icy surface glittered beneath the Stellar Wanderer as Bryan guided the ship toward Admiral Parker's hidden base. The massive form of Jupiter loomed in the background, its swirling storms casting an otherworldly glow across the frozen landscape. "Something's wrong," Sayira said suddenly, pressing a hand to her abdomen. "I feel different." Bryan glanced at her with concern. The changes in her biology had accelerated over the past few days. Her violet skin now had an almost pearlescent quality, and her natural bioluminescence had intensified. Different how? He asked, engaging the landing sequence. Before she could answer, the ship's sensors screamed a warning. Multiple heat signatures emerged from beneath the ice, weapon systems powering up. Shit! Bryan yanked the controls, narrowly avoiding a barrage of plasma fire. So much for a warm welcome. Bryan, Sayura's voice was tight with emotion. I need to tell you something important. An explosion rocked the ship, cutting her off. The Wanderer's port engine sputtered and died. Hold that thought, beautiful, Bryan growled, fighting the controls. We're going in hot. The emergency landing was more of a controlled crash. They skidded across the ice, leaving a trail of burning debris before coming to rest near a massive crevasse. You okay? Bryan asked, helping Sayura from her seat. She nodded, then suddenly doubled over. Bryan, I'm carrying your child. Our species are compatible in ways nobody thought possible. The bonding, it changed everything. Bryan froze, 1,000 emotions flooding through him at once. Then the sound of approaching vehicles snapped him back to reality. We'll figure this out together, he promised, pulling her close. But right now we need to move. They grabbed emergency gear and fled the ship moments before Syndicate forces arrived. The ice tunnels beneath Europa's surface were a maze of crystalline passages and hidden chambers. Bryan's military training and Sayura's enhanced senses helped them stay ahead of their pursuers. The Admiral's backup facility should be 2 kilometers north, Bryan whispered as they crouched in a natural ice formation. If it hasn't been compromised too, Sayura touched his face, her eyes glowing softly in the darkness. Our child will be unique, the first human Nixian hybrid. That's why they want us so badly. They're afraid of what this means. They should be, Bryan smiled fiercely. Humanity's got a way of changing the game, and now you're carrying living proof of that. A distant explosion echoed through the tunnels, followed by the sound of combat. Bryan recognized the distinctive crack of human military-grade weapons. Looks like some of the Admiral's people are still fighting, he said. Ready to crash their party? Sayura's answer was to pull him into a passionate kiss. I never thought when you found me in those ruins that you'd give me so many new beginnings. A new life, a new love, and now a new future growing inside me. Speaking of that, Bryan said as they moved toward the sound of battle, any idea what we should expect with a hybrid baby? My people's children typically gestate for 3 months, Sayura replied, checking her weapon. But with the human DNA accelerating my adaptation, who knows? We're in uncharted territory. They emerged into a large cavern to find a full-scale battle in progress. Admiral Parker's forces were holding off Syndicate troops from a fortified position, but they were outnumbered. Time to even the odds, Bryan grinned, pulling out his backup plasma rifle. Stay close to me. Always, Sayura promised, her own weapon humming to life. Their arrival turned the tide. Bryan's combat experience and Sayura's enhanced abilities made them a devastating team. The Syndicate forces, caught between their assault and the Admiral's defenders, began to fall back. Carter! Admiral Parker's voice boomed across the cavern. Get your ass in here and bring your lady friend. Our medic needs to see her condition. Inside the fortified position, they found a fully equipped underground base. The medic, Dr. Sarah Chester, immediately began scanning Sayura. Fascinating, she muttered. The fetus is developing at an accelerated rate, but it's completely stable. The genetic merger is perfect, almost as if your species were meant to be compatible. That's impossible, Admiral Parker interjected. The Nixians have been around for millennia. How could they be compatible with humans? Because, Sayura said softly, my people were created by the same ancient race that seeded Earth with human potential. We were meant to find each other eventually. The revelation stunned everyone into silence. Then the base's alarms began to wail. Multiple capital ships entering Europa's orbit, an officer reported. Syndicate reinforcements are just, sir. They're preparing to glass the surface. Bryan pulled Sayura close, his hand protectively covering her abdomen. Any ideas, Admiral? Parker's weathered face broke into a predatory smile. As a matter of fact, son, I do. How do you feel about stealing a Syndicate dreadnought? The infiltration team moved silently through the maintenance shaft of the Syndicate dreadnought Crimson Dawn. Bryan led the way with Sayura close behind, her enhanced senses proving invaluable in detecting guard patrols before they appeared. You're sure about this? Bryan whispered, helping her through a particularly tight section. Her pregnancy, though only days old, was progressing rapidly, already showing slight signs. "I've never been more sure of anything," Sci-Fi replied, her hand brushing his as they moved. "Besides, our little one seems to enjoy the excitement. Feel..." She guided his hand to her abdomen, where a subtle warmth pulsed with an otherworldly rhythm. The sensation sent a surge of protective instinct through Bryan's body. Admiral Parker's voice crackled through their secure comms. "Cut the romance, you two. Engineering section's coming up. Remember, we need that command core intact." The plan was audacious. Steal the Dreadnought's command codes, transmit the biological weapons data to the Galactic Council, then use the ship's own systems to prevent the Syndicate from glassing Europa. Simple if you were criminally insane. As they approached engineering, Sci-Fi suddenly froze. "Bryan, look at these markings." The wall panels were covered in ancient script that seemed to shimmer and shift in the low light. Bryan recognized them from the ruins where he'd found Sci-Fi. "The precursors," Sci-Fi breathed, her fingers tracing the symbols. "They didn't just seed our species. They left us technology. The Syndicate's been using it without understanding it." A deep hum resonated through the shaft, and the symbols began to glow with an inner light. Sci-Fi's skin responded, her natural luminescence synchronizing with the ancient technology. "Holy shit," Bryan muttered as a hidden panel slid open, revealing a chamber filled with crystalline structures. "Is this..." "A precursor control node," Sci-Fi finished, her eyes wide. "They built it into the ship's systems. With my enhanced biology, I can interface with it." "Belay that," Admiral Parker ordered through the comm. "We don't know what that could do to the baby." "The baby is exactly why I have to," Sierra countered. "Our child carries both bloodlines. The precursors planned this, designed us for this moment." Bryan wanted to argue to protect her, but the fierce determination in her eyes stopped him. Instead, he pulled her into a passionate kiss. "Just come back to me," he whispered against her lips. "Both of you." Sierra stepped into the chamber, and the crystals responded immediately. Energy coursed through her body, lifting her slightly off the ground. Her skin blazed with light, and Bryan could see the child within her glowing in response. The ship's systems began to change, ancient technology awakening after millennia of dormancy. Alarms blared throughout the vessel. "What the hell's happening up there?" Parker demanded. "Sir," Bryan reported, unable to take his eyes off Sci-Fi, "we just found a way to turn their own ship against them, and maybe a lot more." Through their bond, Bryan could feel fragments of what Sci-Fi was experiencing. Vast knowledge, technological secrets, and a message left by the precursors themselves. They knew, Sci-Fi's voice echoed strangely. They knew humanity would evolve to become something extraordinary. My people were meant to guide and join with yours, creating something greater than either race alone. The ship's weapons powered down, its systems now under precursor control. On the bridge, Syndicate officers watched in horror as their consoles displayed data they tried to keep hidden. Proof of their genetic weapons program, now broadcasting on all frequencies to the Galactic Council. But it wasn't over. The precursor technology had one more surprise. As Sci-Fi interfaced with the system, it began upgrading itself, evolving just as she had evolved through her bond with Bryan. "The child!" she gasped, her hands protectively cradling her abdomen. "It's accelerating the integration. Human adaptability, Nixian biology, and precursor technology, all merging into something new." Bryan stepped into the chamber despite the warnings, drawn by their bond and an instinct he couldn't explain. The moment he touched her, the energy field expanded to encompass them both. Their minds merged through the precursor interface, sharing memories, feelings, and a vision of the future. Their child would be more than just a hybrid. It would be the key to awakening similar potential in others, breaking down the artificial barriers between species that the Syndicate had tried to exploit. "I love you," Bryan said, both aloud and through their enhanced connection. "Both of you." "We know," Sci-Fi replied with a radiant smile. "We've always known since that moment you brought me back to life in the ruins. Everything since then has been leading to this." The ship's transformation completed just as Galactic Council vessels began arriving in response to the broadcast. The Syndicate's carefully constructed plans were unraveling, their weapons of genocide exposed to the galaxy. But for Bryan and Sci-Fi, wrapped in each other's arms within the precursor chamber, the political fallout seemed distant and unimportant. They had found something far more valuable, a love that transcended species, a child that represented hope for the future and a legacy left by an ancient race that had believed in humanity's potential all along. The Crimson Dawn's bridge erupted in chaos as proximity alarms screamed. Through the view screen, Bryan watched in horror as dozens of Syndicate warships emerged from hyperspace, their weapon systems charging. "They're not accepting defeat gracefully," Admiral Parker growled from his commandeered command chair. "Carter, get your family to the precursor chamber. It's the most protected section of the ship." Bryan didn't need to be told twice. Through their enhanced bond, he could feel Saira's determination mixed with concern for their unborn child. The pregnancy had accelerated further. She now looked several months along, her violet skin glowing with an inner radiance that took his breath away. "They're deploying boarding parties," Saira announced as they hurried through the corridors. "But there's something else. Something wrong about their energy signatures." A massive impact rocked the ship. Emergency bulkheads slammed shut as hull breaches were detected across multiple decks. "They're using suicide tactics," Bryan realized, "ramming ships packed with their bioweapons. If even one breaks containment, it won't," Saira said firmly, placing his hand on her swollen abdomen. "Feel that? Our little one's not going to let that happen." The moment his skin made contact, Bryan felt it, a surge of power unlike anything he'd experienced before. Their child was channeling precursor energy through both of them, creating a protective field that spread throughout the ship. They reached the crystal chamber just as another impact shook the vessel. The ancient technology responded immediately to their presence, the crystals pulsing with synchronized light. "The baby's interfacing with the system," Saira gasped, her eyes wide with wonder. "It's teaching me how to use it properly." Through their shared consciousness, Bryan saw what she meant. The precursor technology wasn't just a weapon or a tool. It was a bridge between species, designed to enhance natural bonds and unlock hidden potential. "Admiral," Bryan called through the comm, "we might have a solution, but it's going to get weird." "Son," Parker replied amid the sound of battle, "weird stopped being a concern when your alien girlfriend started glowing and your unborn child started upgrading my ship. Do what you need to do." Saira stepped into the center of the chamber, pulling Bryan with her, their bodies pressed together, fitting perfectly despite her changed form. The energy field intensified around them, and Bryan felt their consciousness expanding beyond the ship. "I can feel them," Saira whispered against his neck. "The Syndicate troops. They're not all willing participants. Many were coerced or modified against their will." "Then let's give them a choice," Bryan replied, understanding flowing between them. Through their enhanced connection, amplified by both their unborn child and the precursor technology, they reached out to the attacking forces, not with weapons or threats, but with truth, showing them the reality of what the Syndicate had done, offering them a chance at something better. The effect was immediate and devastating. And across the Syndicate fleet, modified soldiers began turning on their commanders. Ships stopped their suicide runs as crews mutinied. The carefully maintained walls of fear and conditioning crumbled in the face of hope. But the Syndicate leadership wasn't finished. Their flagship, a massive dreadnought nearly twice the size of the Crimson Dawn, moved into position for a final assault. "They're powering up something big," Parker warned. "Energy readings are off the charts." "Let them come," Saira said, her voice resonating with power. "Our child wants to say hello." The enemy flagship fired, unleashing a beam of concentrated energy that should have torn through any normal vessel. Instead, it met a barrier of pure precursor energy, channeled through the unique combination of human and Nixian DNA that their child represented. The beam didn't just stop, it reversed, following the connection back to its source. But instead of destroying the Syndicate ship, it began transforming it, spreading the same awakening that had started on the Crimson Dawn. "Holy shit," Parker breathed over the comm. "Are you seeing this?" They were. Through their shared vision, Bryan and Saira watched as the precursor technology spread from ship to ship, breaking down barriers, healing modifications, and offering choices where before there had been only chains. In the crystal chamber, Saira turned in Bryan's arms, her eyes glowing with joy and love. "Do you remember," she asked, "when you found me buried in those ruins? My heart stopped." "How could I forget?" Bryan replied, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Best decision I ever made, bringing you back." "You didn't just restart my heart," she said softly. "You started something new, something that's going to change everything." Their kiss was interrupted by a powerful kick from within Sayira's abdomen, making them both laugh. "I think someone's ready to meet us," Bryan said, caressing the swell of her belly. "Soon," Sayira promised, "but first we have a galaxy to help heal. Together." The Crimson Dawn shuddered under another assault as the remaining Syndicate loyalists launched their desperate final attack. In the precursor chamber, Sayira's grip on Bryan's hand tightened as another contraction hit. "Your timing is impeccable, little one," she gasped, her violet skin pulsing with waves of bioluminescence that matched her labor rhythm. "Just like his father," Bryan grinned, trying to mask his concern as battle stations blared throughout the ship. Through their bond, he could feel both Sayira's pain and their son's eagerness to enter the universe. Admiral Parker's voice crackled through the comm. "Carter, we've got multiple boarding parties cutting through the hull. They're targeting your location. Seems they want your kid more than they want revenge." "Like hell they will," Bryan growled, checking his weapons while maintaining physical contact with Sayira. The precursor crystals around them hummed with increasing intensity, responding to the imminent birth. Dr. Chester, who'd insisted on accompanying them to the chamber, monitored her portable medical scanner with fascination. "The child's energy signature is off the charts. He's actually strengthening the ship's defenses through his connection to the precursor tech." "That's our boy," Sayira smiled through another contraction. "Already protecting his family before he's even—" "Ah!" Her eyes widened. "Bryan, he's coming. Now!" The ship's internal sensors screamed a warning. Syndicate troops had breached the outer defenses and were converging on their position. Bryan could hear weapons fire getting closer. "Parker, we need backup," he shouted into the comm while helping Sayira into a more comfortable position. "Working on it, son," the Admiral replied amid the sound of combat. "But our security teams are spread thin. You'll have to hold them off." The chamber's entrance cycled open, admitting a squad of former Syndicate soldiers who'd defected during the earlier battle. Their leader, a burly Centaurian named Rax, took up a defensive position. "We owe you our freedom," he rumbled. "We'll die before we let them touch your family." Bryan nodded gratefully, turning his attention back to Sayira. Through their enhanced connection, he could feel their son's consciousness reaching out, already so aware, so powerful. The first explosion rocked the outer doors. Rax and his team opened fire as Syndicate troops attempted to breach the chamber. The precursor crystals pulsed faster, creating a protective barrier around Sayira. "Almost there," Dr. Chester encouraged. "One more push." Sayira's cry of effort merged with the sound of battle. Bryan held her tight, their bodies and minds completely in sync through their bond. In that moment, something extraordinary happened. Their son's consciousness, amplified by the precursor technology, expanded throughout the ship. Every crystal, every circuit, every particle of energy responded to his arrival. The attacking troops suddenly stopped, weapons falling from nerveless fingers as they were touched by a wave of pure potential. The combined power of human determination and Nixian adaptation, wrapped in the ancient wisdom of the precursors. "By all the stars," Rax whispered, lowering his weapon. A new cry filled the chamber, strong, defiant, and unmistakably unique. Bryan found himself holding a perfect baby boy, his skin a subtle blend of human tones and Sayira's violet hue, his eyes already open and aware, shifting between deep brown and indigo. "He's beautiful," Sayira breathed, reaching out to touch their son's face. "Our little Nixian human miracle." "He needs a name," Bryan said softly, still in awe of the tiny being who'd already changed so much. Sayira smiled, her exhaustion evident, but her joy overwhelming. "In my culture, we name children after the moment of their greatest potential. I think Kyleth. It means bridge between stars in ancient Nixian." "Kyleth Carter," Bryan tested the name, feeling it resonate through their bond. Their son gurgled in apparent approval, sending a wave of contentment through their shared connection. Outside the chamber, the remaining Syndicate forces had surrendered, overcome by the psychic backlash of Kyleth's birth. Admiral Parker reported that similar scenes were playing out across the entire battle zone. "Your son just ended a war by being born," Dr. Chester said, shaking her head in amazement. "I can't wait to see what he does for an encore." Sayira pulled Bryan down for a tender kiss, their baby secure between them. "Thank you," she whispered. "For what? For finding me in those ruins, for being brave enough to restart my heart, for giving me a new life, a new love, and now this perfect new being." The precursor crystals pulsed with warm light, creating patterns that danced across their skin. Through their bond, Bryan could feel Kyleth's consciousness already exploring, learning, growing. Their son would be something entirely new, not just a hybrid, but a bridge between all species, living proof that love could transcend any boundary. 3 weeks after Kyleth's birth, the Crimson Dawn drifted in deep space, its precursor systems humming in harmony with the infant's developing powers. Bryan stood at the viewport, watching his son float in a sphere of pure energy, while Saira guided his first attempts at conscious control. "That's it, little star," Saira cooed as Kyleth giggled, creating patterns of light that danced across the chamber. "Just like that." Bryan couldn't help but smile at the scene. Their son was growing at an accelerated rate, already displaying the awareness of a much older child. His skin shifted between human and Nixian tones, depending on his mood, and his eyes held wisdom that sometimes made even Admiral Parker uncomfortable. The moment of peace shattered as emergency alarms blared throughout the ship. Multiple vessels dropping out of hyperspace, the tactical officer announced. "Syndicate signatures, but different." "Different how?" Bryan demanded, already moving to shield his family. "They're running dark," Parker replied from the bridge. "No power signatures except for life support, like they're being controlled remotely." Through their bond, Bryan felt Saira's sudden tension. "Ghost ships," she whispered, clutching Kyleth closer. "The Syndicate's most fanatical branch. They undergo a process that links their consciousness directly to their vessels." "Leaving their bodies behind," Bryan finished, remembering intelligence reports he dismissed as rumors. "Perfect for suicide missions." The ghost ships surrounded them in a perfect sphere, their dark hulls absorbing both light and sensor scans. Then simultaneously, they powered up, not with normal engine signatures, but with something that made the precursor crystals throughout the dawn vibrate in warning. "They've adapted," Saira realized with horror. "They're using corrupted precursor tech, twisted by their neural integration process." Kyleth, sensing his parents' distress, reached out with his developing powers. Through their family bond, Bryan saw what his son perceived. The ghost ships weren't just vessels, but prisons for hundreds of tortured consciousnesses, forcibly merged with machines. "We have to help them," Bryan said, knowing Saira felt the same through their connection. "There are people trapped in those ships." "The boy's the key," a new voice echoed through the Dawn's comm system. "Ancient, mechanical, wrong. Surrender him, and your deaths will be quick." Bryan's response was succinct and anatomically impossible. He felt Saira's mental smile of approval even as she prepared for battle, her violet skin beginning to glow with gathered power. "Rax," Bryan called to their Centaurian ally, "get a strike team to the launch bay. We're going to need boarders." "Already there," Rax replied eagerly. "These bastards helped design the modification programs that enslaved my people. Time for payback." The ghost ships attacked as one, firing weapons that seemed to bend reality itself. But Kyleth, perhaps acting on instinct, created a shield of pure precursor energy that protected the Dawn. "That's my boy," Bryan grinned, then turned serious. "Parker, we need a plan." "Working on it, son. These ships are running on borrowed tech and stolen souls. There has to be a central control point." Saira suddenly gasped, her eyes wide. "The neural network. Kyleth can see it. All the trapped consciousnesses are being channeled through a single node. There, that ship at their formation's heart." Bryan studied the vessel she indicated. It was smaller than the others, almost hidden in their midst. "A command ship. Take that out." "And the whole network crashes," Parker finished. "But getting to it through that formation." "I can help with that," Saira said, her voice taking on the resonant quality it had when she accessed deeper precursor knowledge. "Our bond, amplified through Kyleth, can reach those trapped minds. Give them a chance to fight back." Bryan pulled her close, their son secure between them. The familiar heat of attraction flared despite the situation, or perhaps because of it. Every crisis they faced only strengthened their connection, their love growing deeper with each challenge. "Do it," he whispered against her lips. "Show them what humanity and Nixians can do together." Their consciousness merged through their bond, amplified by Kyleth's innocent but immense power. Together, they reached out to the imprisoned minds in the ghost ships, offering them something they'd been denied: choice. The effect was catastrophic for the Syndicate's voice-based plans. Ship after ship broke formation as their enslaved crews fought back against their neural restraints. The carefully coordinated attack dissolved into chaos. Now, Parker ordered, and the Dawn surged forward, its weapons targeting the command ship with devastating precision. But the Syndicate had one final surprise. As their control ship exploded, it released a pulse of corrupted precursor energy aimed directly at Kyleth. Bryan felt Sayira's terror through their bond as the blast approached their son. Then something remarkable happened. Kyleth reached out, not with fear but with curiosity, and touched the corrupted energy. Through their family bond, Bryan and Sayira watched in awe as their son did what only a being of both worlds could do. He healed it. The pulse transformed, changing from sickly purple to pure white, spreading to encompass all the ghost ships. Where it touched, neural restraints dissolved and tortured minds found peace. The aftermath of Kyleth's display of power brought an unexpected visitor. The space around the Crimson Dawn shimmered like heat waves over desert sand, and a vessel materialized, crystalline, ancient, and undeniably of precursor origin. By all the stars, Sayira breathed, holding Kyleth closer as the ship's presence made the precursor technology throughout the Dawn sing in harmony. The alien vessel dwarfed their dreadnought, its crystalline surface reflecting starlight in patterns that seemed to form living constellations. Through their bond, Bryan felt Kyleth's excitement. Their son recognized something in that ship that called to his unique heritage. Incoming transmission, Parker announced, his gruff voice unusually reverent, like nothing I've ever seen. The holographic display activated, revealing a being of pure energy and light. Its form shifted between humanoid shapes, as if unable or unwilling to settle on a single appearance. "The bridge child awakens," the being said, its voice resonating through their minds rather than their ears. "After 10,000 generations, the seed we planted bears fruit." Bryan stepped forward protectively. "Who are you?" "We are the Guardians," the entity replied. "Those who remain to watch, to wait for the one who could unite what was sundered. Your son is the fulfillment of an ancient promise." Sayira's violet skin shimmered with emotion as understanding dawned. "The precursors, they didn't just seed our species, they were preparing for this moment." "Yes," the Guardian confirmed. "Humanity's adaptability, Nixian preservation, combined in perfect harmony. Your love story was written in the stars long before either of your races reached for them." "Hold up," Bryan interjected. "Are you saying we were manipulated into falling in love?" The Guardian's light form rippled with what might have been amusement. "No manipulation was needed. The potential was there. We merely provided opportunities. Your choice to save her that day in the ruins was purely your own, Bryan Carter. As was every choice that followed." Kyleth reached toward the hologram, creating his own patterns of light that intertwined with the Guardian's form. Through their family bond, Bryan and Sayira felt their son's understanding, deeper than words, more profound than mere knowledge. "He is ready," the Guardian announced. "The bridge child must take his place among us to guide the next phase of evolution for all species." "Like hell," Bryan growled. "He's our son, not some cosmic chess piece." "My love," Sayira touched his arm, her eyes glowing with inner light. "Look closer." Through their enhanced connection, Bryan saw what she meant. The Guardian wasn't proposing to take Kyleth away. Rather, their son would become part of something greater while remaining with them. A bridge not just between species, but between the physical and energy realms the precursors had once inhabited. The crystalline ship extended an invitation, not just to Kyleth, but to all of them. A chance to help guide the galaxy toward a future where barriers between species became meaningless, where love like theirs would become not an exception, but a beautiful norm. "Together?" Bryan asked, looking at Sayira. Her answer was a kiss that sent sparks of energy dancing across their skin. Through their bond, he felt her absolute trust, her complete devotion, and her excitement for their shared future. "Always together," she whispered against his lips. "From the moment you brought my heart back to life, we were destined for something extraordinary." Kyleth's happy gurgle seemed to light up the entire bridge. The infant's powers had grown exponentially, but his most remarkable trait remained his capacity for joy, a perfect blend of human emotion and Nixian grace. Admiral Parker cleared his throat. "Well, don't keep the cosmic beings waiting. The Dawn's yours if you want her. She's more your ship than the Earth fleets now anyway." The transition was seamless. The Crimson Dawn, guided by Kyleth's instinctive understanding of precursor technology, merged with a crystalline vessel. The result was something entirely new, a ship that represented the same harmony its crew embodied. As they prepared to embark on their new mission, Bryan held his family close. Through their bond, he shared memories of that first moment in the ruins, the leap of faith that led him to try saving a beautiful alien woman buried in the sand. Every challenge they'd faced, every obstacle overcome, had only strengthened what began in that instant. "You know," he said, watching stars streak by in entirely new patterns through their transformed ship's viewport, "I never did tell you why I decided to try that crazy revival in the ruins." Saira smiled, her violet skin glowing with love and contentment. "Why? Because even with your heart stopped, you were the most alive thing I'd ever seen, and I knew somehow that bringing you back would change everything." "And did it?" she teased, though their bond thrummed with shared joy. Bryan looked at their son, now sleeping peacefully in a cradle of pure energy, then back at his beautiful alien wife. "It changed the whole damn universe. Beautiful. And we're just getting started." The ship accelerated into the unknown, carrying its precious cargo of hope and possibility. Behind them, the ghost ships dispersed, their freed crews beginning their own journeys of recovery and discovery. Ahead lay infinite potential, guided by the love of two beings who defied cosmic odds to find each other. And somewhere, in the vast expanse of space and time, the precursors smiled upon their greatest creation. Not their technology or their grand plans, but the simple, universe-changing power of a human man who chose to restart an alien woman's heart.